Hey, Guoba here. A brand new endgame, Pure Fiction is out, and it offers a new twist to Memory of Chaos, promoting the use of different units, teams, and Lycones than usual. It will be up every other rotation, so every 2 weeks we will get a new Memory of Chaos or Pure Fiction. It is very exciting because lesser used units now have their time to shine, and you have a variety of new team options because of how the battles are designed. So we'll see how we unlock Pure Fiction, how it works, some winners of this new endgame, and some quick team ideas. Like and sub if this helped, and let's begin. To unlock Pure Fiction, you must be at least Equilibrium level 3 and have progressed enough in the storyline, finishing the quest to beat the final boss in the Luofu. You then should have the UC's Clever Decor quest, which is a quick dialogue exchange and test run to show you the features of Pure Fiction. Once unlocked, you can now start clearing the new endgame. Pure Fiction has 4 stages rather than the usual 12 Memory of Chaos stages. This also means the max rewards, which are the same as MOC, are obtained at a total of 12 stars rather than 36. This means by just completing the weaker first 3 stages, you get an equivalent of 27 stars in Memory of Chaos, being equal to beating Memory of Chaos 9. Pure Fiction has its own 2-week rotation buffs too, named Whimsicalities, which will buff a certain archetype of units, usually the one that is on the limited banner. Unlike Memory of Chaos though, you can choose a cacophony to buff your teams in battle. These are based on the Whimsicality and will also change every new rotation. These can change up how you clear, and some may complement your playstyles and teams more than the others. For example, the first Pure Fiction's Whimsicality is based on applying Shatter to enemies, which will stack and then explode upon the enemy taking their turn or being defeated. Your cacophonies can boost the shatter stack frequency from ultimates, give you instant shatter stacks upon enemies spawning, or buff your ultimate depending on how many enemies you've defeated that have had shatter. To 3-star a Pure Fiction stage, you must acquire 60,000 points, which are obtained from doing damage to enemies as well as killing them. This is the sum of both nodes, and so you can compensate for a weaker first side with a stronger second side, just like cycle counts in Memory of Chaos. One side can get a total of 40,000 points, so trashing one side with a strong team and doing okay on the second side can still net you 3 stars and 180 Jades. The first and second stars are acquired at 40,000 and 50,000 points. Note that there's no ally dying star condition, so if you fall in combat you might be able to get 3 stars if you just keep on going and try to do as much damage as possible. This can see the rise of no sustained teams, especially considering the first 2 waves in combat are pretty weak. Entering into combat, we are welcomed by 5 or 4 enemies. One node will always have 5 enemies maximum on the field at a time, whilst the other side will have a maximum of 4 enemies. Use that info how you will. We have a wave count of 3 waves, so 1 more than the usual 2 in the latest Memory of Chaos. When defeating enemies, more will be spawned in their place, but this won't count as a new wave for effects like Ruan Mei's signature. It will count for enemy spawning effects though, like Argenti's energy trace. So many enemies and them being so weak definitely changes how we will view energy for units in this game mode. I will still be calculating guaranteed rotations, but in Pure Fiction on AoE DPS we can see some very quick ult cycling. From what I could tell, the first wave has a reserve of 13 enemies, the second wave 14 enemies, and the final wave 25 enemies, for a total of 52 enemies. So if you manage to beat 2 sets of 5 enemies in the first wave, only 3 ones will spawn after that. The first wave of Pure Fiction will feature an elite enemy alongside weak mobs. The second wave is purely normal mobs with some trotters mixed in, and the third wave is a chunkier version of the first wave's elite. In Pure Fiction 4, this final elite will be replaced with a boss, and for this rotation it will be Jeopard or Svarog. In the first 2 waves, you'll be able to smack the enemies silly, depleting a reserve of enemies until you enter a new wave and encounter new enemies. The final wave will not kill off the boss until every other enemy in reserve has been defeated. So enjoy watching that 1% HP Svarog deleting your team if you don't clear the additional mobs fast enough. They do have a large health pool, but by the time you've tackled the side mobs with strong AoE skills, they should be pretty low. Your action value will not reset when entering a new wave 2, so you are on a constant time limit to do as much destruction as possible. You will have 5 cycles to beat the content or do as much as you can, similar to the 10 cycle limit of Memory of Chaos for maximum stars. So damaging enemies will give you an amount of points depending on the wave, and killing them will give you the rest of the points. This is a useful knowledge since it means even if you don't beat the boss at all in the final stage, doing a ton of damage and clearing most mobs can still net you those 3 stars. This is why I talk about easy stellar Jades. Not only do we have a nice fodder wave or two for some starter points, the final wave doesn't even need to be finished, and dying does not hurt your stars as much as Memory of Chaos. Final thing to note is that the first 3 stages can be auto-completed when we get our second Pure Fiction rotation, just like the first 7 stages of Memory of Chaos can by 3-starring the 3rd stage. So it's like completing up to MOC 9 in one move, a nice 540 Jades from maxing out just one stage. So who are the winners of this new endgame? Well, Erudition will be mentioned by every creator in existence. Erudition doesn't actually do that badly into Memory of Chaos, it's over-exaggerated, but nonetheless this mode is heaven for them. There will still be some strong elites and bosses, but they will have a smaller health pool and the final boss will be chunked down with blessings and your AoE abilities. The fodder mobs are also easily destroyed from a well-invested Erudition, unlike the multiple elite endgame waves of Memory of Chaos. Note that blast units like the Destruction roster still do fine into this with their adjacent attacking abilities, and this single target focus helps out versus the few chunky enemies that do pop up. Some notable winners are Himeko, who will be breaking so much and thus activating so many more talents than usual. Herta wins too. She doesn't get many talent activations versus chunky elites, but will be spinning non-stop versus the onslaught of enemies. Argenti was already doing fine, but his energy trace is going to go insane, and the 90 energy ult from him is actually very useful in this game mode, since it can actually delete the waves unlike an endgame MOC. He also has an AoE skill and ultimate, just like Jingyu, who will also be enjoying the frequent ults and enemies. Some other winners are blast or AoE out of turn attackers like Blade and Clara, both who also enjoy tons of new targets being able to hit them. They can benefit from this new summon based fight system since you'll want to be pumping out as much damage as possible, and then being able to do so on and outside of their turn is great. Clara might be a bit slow though, so let's hope she can kill in time. Aura based buffers like Ruan Mei and Asta will love this new endgame. The buffs being based on their own turns means allies that can spam abilities and out of turn attacks will be constantly maxed out on buffs upon new enemies spawning. Imagine a Ruan Mei skill and ultimate being activated for 68% damage and 25% resistance penetration among other things, and Argenti constantly spamming a 90 energy ult and his skill, perhaps a Herta spinning just after, and you'll have all of these attacks with incredible buffs, which is so many more attacks compared to usual. I think Seele will thrive due to her on-kill resurgence effect, and her single target power can actually help out on that chunky boss. She has problems in Memory of Chaos when she can't consistently activate extra turns, but here she will have so many opportunities to do so. There are some nice on-enemy defeat effects as well, like Pella's E1 that gives her a whole 5 energy. That is also going to have way higher value here than usual. On-kill light cones also see a buff in Pure Fiction. For example, Genius's Repose was already an awesome light cone in my opinion on a hypercarry Erudition, but now having it on any Erudition is a guaranteed permanent 48% crit damage on top of the base passive, seeing as you'll be killing enemies every turn. Others include Under the Blue Sky and Cruising in the Stellar Sea. Of course, I must mention high enemy count based light cones too, and that so far is Night on the Milky Way. Versus a couple enemies and especially elites, this light cone is rough and just an okay stat stick. But versus 5 enemy waves and easily obtainable breaks, we are looking at a 45% attack buff, a 30% damage buff, and a 5-star worthy base attack. Himeko has finally ascended to godhood. For my friend that has S5 Himeko, I hope he enjoys the 75% attack and 50% damage buff. Also remember this damage buff can be activated from any ally breaking, not just the wearer. The opposite side of the coin are hunt units and low enemy count based light cones. Hunt units outside of Seele and perhaps Topaz and Ratio will suffer a bit due to how they need a whole turn to clear 1 out of 52 whole enemies. Perhaps an AoE sub DPS could help out these hunt units though, so we could see some teams like a Welt and a Ratio. A light cone like Only Silence Remains will nearly never be activating, so they will be relegated to Memory of Chaos gaming. For Pure Fiction 4 first side, you can do Argenti Hypercarry, Argenti Herta Dual DPS, Herta Hypercarry, or some Jingliu teams. Some energies, including the main boss, are imaginary weak too, so Imbibe to Lune can work just fine in my opinion, even perhaps a Welt. For the second side, we have Fire and Lightning as the primary weaknesses, so Guanaifen, Himeko, Serval, Jingyu and Kafka, and you can even match Guanaifen or Serval with Kafka too for dual DPS synergy. Remember that zero sustain teams could see a rise in this game mode, or potentially teams with weaker sustains like Fire Trailblazer, who on a break build can do great damage versus fodder and support your team just enough to get you to those point milestones. I am really excited to see the variety of team building and content we can get out of Pure Fiction. unless you just run Jingliu again until the end of service. Let me know what you think below, and press the like button and sub if this helped. Thanks to my amazing YouTube members, thanks for watching, and have a good day.